My cheating wife left town. With her boss, I changed the locks, ended it for good. Growing up in a small town, I admired people who overcame circumstances to achieve greatness. My brother Jeff and I shared that admiration, though our lives were shaped by circumstance. Watching Maple Grove Mills, a key part of our community, decline after outside investors was tough. As the local economy crumbled, so did the town spirit. I realized change must come from within. Years later, after establishing our careers, an opportunity arose. We co-founded Falcon Associates. With Lucy, Dennis, and Marty, aiming to revive a business, restore a disappearing way of life. Although none could predict the challenges ahead, we were hopeful, each earning $250,000 annually. Reasonable for a startup in a risky industry, with standard benefits to address Jeff's security concerns. We hired a firm for ongoing protection. Lucy and Dennis kept families out of public eye. In case of the worst, we all had life insurance policies worth $10 million to protect our families. I'm Roger Richardson, born and raised in Rose Valley. You'll notice I didn't call it home. That's central to my story. Jeff and I weren't mill kids. Our parents ran Richardson's Garden, the town's only Chinese restaurant. Opened in 1947 by our grandparents, it's still operated by our mom today. My grandfather, a veteran, saw opportunity in Rose Valley to open a place catering to soldiers returning from the Pacific who craved Asian flavors. The restaurant kept some of the menu from the coffee shop it replaced, including the famous fried chicken recipe. Served every Friday, my grandparents lived above the restaurant until they built a house and tea garden behind it. After my dad was born, when Grandpa passed and Grandma retired, my parents took over. Jeff and I spent childhood afternoons there. Under Grandma's care, my childhood friend Kathy Henderson lived next door to my grandparents' house. Her father was a sheriff's deputy. Her mom worked part-time at Richardson's Garden. Kathy told her mom she would marry me someday, and we did. We stayed close through school. After Kathy graduated, we both went to Portland State University. In 2001, I earned my MBA. Kathy got her accounting degree. Jeff passed the Oregon bar. We all returned to Rose Valley to start our careers. Jeff is a lawyer, Kathy an accountant for Maple Grove, and me, an engineer. Kathy and I were unofficially engaged since childhood. But we made it official after returning home, getting married that September. In 2002, tragedy struck. Kathy's dad was killed in an accident. Later that year, my dad passed away from pancreatic cancer. Our moms decided to live together. Kathy and I moved into my childhood home, where we started our family. Our daughter Lana was born on October 24, 2003. She was perfect. Rose Valley seemed insulated from national economic swings, with Maple Grove Mills producing goods people always needed. When the housing crisis hit, even our town felt the impact. Many locals were lured into refinancing at low rates, only to find themselves in deep debt. When the bubble burst in 2008, that's when Daniel Moore, president of Moore Equity Partners, appeared. His private equity firm offered to buy Maple Grove Mills, promising salvation for those struggling with mortgages. The town split between those supporting and opposing the buyout. I was against it, believing Congress might offer relief soon. Moore's offer undervalued the company, plus Moore came off as arrogant. Something about him felt off. Despite these concerns, most voted for the sale. Enticed by the money to pay off their debts, in October 2008, Maple Grove Mills became Maple Grove Inc., ending its 102-year local ownership. Problems began right away. Local farmers were forced to lower prices, quality control issues emerged, packaging suffered. Yet management claimed everything was fine, because profits and sales were up. I couldn't understand how such poor management could run a profitable company. My concerns grew. I questioned if I should leave and help my mom run Richardson's Garden. Kathy didn't share my worries, insisting it wasn't our responsibility as employees to care about the company's direction as long as paychecks kept coming. Our conversations about work became fewer. Kathy wasn't happy about my thoughts of quitting. Meanwhile, Lana's solution to my frustrations was hosting tea parties with her dolls, which always made me smile. In January 2009, a new president took office. the government rolled out programs to help homeowners. While some debate whether these programs worked, I remained frustrated. We couldn't convince Mills employees to hold out for a better solution. By summer 2009, it was clear this wasn't another recession. The economy was in freefall. Despite reporting record profits, Maple Grove started laying off employees. For the first time since the Great Depression, management assured us the layoffs wouldn't be long-term, severance benefits would help. The 30% let go were mostly those who opposed the sale to more equity partners. You'll get your kitchen job after all, Kathy mocked. As we waited for my turn to be fired, I ignored her, focusing on spending time with Lana. When HR called me, I told Sharon, the manager, to skip the severance talk. I refused to sign the non-disclosure agreement or waiver. Sharon, who had also voted against the buyout, understood my frustration. We parted on good terms. I invited her to dinner at the restaurant sometime. After leaving, I picked Lana up from school. Kathy didn't answer her phone, so I called her and Lana's grandmothers to let them know they wouldn't need to pick Lana up. Something felt off when I got home. I found Kathy's note on the kitchen table. She said she was leaving me for someone better. Taking Lana, if I didn't sign the divorce papers, I'd never see my daughter again. I immediately called Jeff, telling him what happened. He urged me to leave the house and bring the note to his office. Once there, Jeff and his boss Alex quickly read the note. Alex explained that Kathy's plan had failed. She intended to take Lana while I was busy in an exit interview, probably heading out of state. Jeff asked if I knew who she was leaving me for. I had no idea, likely one of Moore's managers, though Kathy never mentioned names. Alex reassured me, Oregon law prioritizes the child's best interests, not the parent's gender. Kathy's threat would work against her in court. Since Lana was with me, and we had a strong family support system, Kathy's note would backfire, threatening to withhold a child, to force a spouse to sign divorce papers. Would be a major strike against her. In custody decisions, we filed a counterclaim, arguing Kathy's plan to take our daughter proved she shouldn't have custody. Since I left work early and picked up Lana, her plan failed. The court granted me temporary custody. We prepared for a legal fight. It wasn't long before Kathy's someone better was revealed. Daniel Moore, not surprising, right? Moore's arrogance, wealth, worked against him in court. Jeff became my lead attorney, with Alex advising. Moore's expensive legal team, trying to bulldoze a small-town lawyer, didn't sit well with the judge. Kathy's own mother testified in my favor, offering to help me care for Lana. Her support sealed the case when Kathy's threatening note was shown in court. Moore's lawyers looked visibly uncomfortable. The judge took Kathy's note at face value, ruling she'd given up her claim to any marital assets. Our house and family business were in my mom's name, so assets were limited to cars, IRAs, and bank accounts. More importantly, the judge agreed. Kathy's threat showed she didn't have Lana's best interest in mind. I was granted full custody of Lana, with Kathy allowed supervised visitation. Moore showed up on the last day of the trial, expecting victory, but left looking shocked and defeated. That night, we closed the restaurant to celebrate privately. I spent most of it comforting Kathy's mother, Nancy, who had supported me in court. A few weeks later, Kathy married Daniel Moore and moved to Los Angeles. Though she flew back to Oregon for weekly visits with Lana, things were difficult. Kathy and her mom often got into shouting matches during the visits. After one especially bad argument, Nancy banned her from the house. We moved visits to the restaurant, where Kathy's mother would sit outside, keeping a close eye on her. My idea of returning to the restaurant full-time was premature. With my mom still running it, and no plans to retire, I wasn't needed. Then my former boss from Maple Grove, Marty, who was also fired, stopped by to discuss starting a new business. With other ex-managers, I immediately agreed to join them. The idea behind our new business, Falcon, was to unite the suppliers Maple Grove had dropped or low-balled and create a cooperative. We aimed to produce high-quality products and sell them to boutique natural food retailers who were rejecting Maple Grove's lower-quality goods. Our advantage was the good relationships we had built as the former management team at Maple Grove. Since we weren't operational yet, Marty would handle production. My role was to apply my MBA, drafting a business plan to secure funding, and a marketing plan to convince suppliers we could sell what we produced. Then I got the call. "Roger," Jeff shouted. When I picked up, "What's going on?" I asked, worried by his tone. "Kathy tried to take Lana. Nancy tried to stop her. Now both are in the hospital. It's bad. Roger, you need to get here." I dropped everything and sped home, with Jeff filling me in. Kathy had tried to take Lana during her visit. When Nancy intervened, Kathy's driver pepper sprayed her. Despite being in pain, Nancy chased after them. When Lana saw her grandma, she broke free and ran back, but was struck by a truck. The driver wasn't at fault. He couldn't stop in time. Nancy died in the ER. Lana lingered in a coma for 8 days before passing. She would have turned 7 the next month. After that, I shut down emotionally. I vaguely remember the doctor telling us Lana was gone. Then somehow finding myself in the restaurant kitchen days later, cutting up a chicken, without remembering how I got there. My family watched over me, making sure I didn't hurt myself. Arrangements were made for both funerals. I learned Nancy had named me her next of kin, and left everything to Lana and me, in her will, as her only son-in-law. With no sons of her own, I was responsible for her final arrangements. I couldn't live in the house anymore. It was too painful. I moved into Jeff's apartment. Gene moved into the house, as he needed to be close to the restaurant. Mom stayed with me most of the time, but returned to the house to sleep. Kathy and her driver were arrested at the scene. Witnesses told the police what happened. The DA charged Kathy with first-degree custodial interference, the driver with second-degree kidnapping. The driver was also charged with third-degree assault for pepper spraying Nancy. Because these were felonies, they both faced 2 counts of felony manslaughter for the deaths of Nancy and Lana, with sentences of up to 25 years. At the arraignment, Jeff and Alex presented Kathy's prior threat to take Lana and the fact that she had left me for a wealthy out-of-state man whose driver was involved. The judge deemed both Kathy and the driver flight risks and denied bail. The DA warned us they might not be convicted, but expected a plea deal. Jeff asked if Moore's involvement could be proven, but the DA doubted it. They tried offering leniency in exchange for implicating Moore, but neither Kathy nor the driver cooperated. In the end, they pleaded guilty to 2 counts of second-degree manslaughter and received concurrent sentences, eligible for parole after serving 6 years. I didn't submit a victim statement at their sentencing. While some feel satisfaction, closure after a sentencing, I felt nothing. The following months were a blur, with time flying when I was working, and crawling when I wasn't. Nights were the hardest. I buried myself in work to cope. One day, while working in the tea garden, I received a call from a woman named Sophie Seuss, asking to speak with me on behalf of Amon Sulus. A billionaire shipping magnate. Amon wanted to discuss a partnership, so I agreed to meet him. 3 days later, I checked into Timberline Lodge. There was a message waiting for me, inviting me to dinner at a nearby luxury condo. When I arrived, I was greeted by Amon and Sophie, his daughter-in-law. After dinner, Amon explained that he and Sophie had their own experience with Daniel Moore. Amon believed Moore was responsible for his son Armin's death. Armin Sulus had risen from humble beginnings, amassing a fortune through illegal means, before changing his ways to win the love of his wife, Manon. She inspired him to dedicate his wealth to good causes, founding the Manon Sulus Foundation to combat poverty and exploitation. After her death, their son Andre took over the foundation. The foundation became involved in negotiations in the impoverished state of San Lawrence, where a deal was being made to fund schools and hospitals in exchange for granting over 500,000 acres of rainforest to an energy and mining cartel. The foundation proposed an alternative plan, funding fewer schools but protecting the land from deforestation and exploitation. The president of San Lawrence welcomed Andre Sulus for a summit with local officials and tribal leaders. However, their plane disappeared over the rainforest. Shortly after, the vice president took over as president. The disappearance was blamed on eco-terrorists. Negotiations with the Sulus Foundation ended abruptly. The deal with the mining cartel, funded by Moore Equity Partners, was quickly pushed through, leading to the destruction of the rainforest. "You saw that coming, didn't you?" Amon said, bitterly. He believed Moore's money had motivated the vice president, though he blamed the new president for his son's death. I recalled Jeff's words to our DA about Moore being behind my family's tragedy. Amon admitted he wanted revenge, but resisted because his late wife Manon and son wouldn't have approved. Sophie, his daughter-in-law, also firmly opposed any violent actions. Aman shared a photo of his grandchildren, explaining that yielding to his darker instincts could cost him his relationship with them. When I asked why we were meeting, Aman explained that Sophie had agreed he needed to act, but within legal and ethical bounds. Sophie then presented a folder detailing Moore's destructive business practices, including his acquisition of a bakery in Illinois. After initial growth, the company collapsed, leaving hundreds jobless. Part of a pattern seen with other companies, including Maple Grove Mills, Aman's proposal was clear: someone needed to rescue these companies and prove businesses could succeed with integrity. He suggested I take the lead, using my experience battling Moore in the divorce and custody case. As a public face, Aman and Sophie couldn't act directly, as it would look like rich people playing with businesses, but I could step in as someone with a personal stake. Skeptical, I asked if we could really succeed. Aman pointed out we were already trying to start a business. During our discussion, he offered to provide the resources, ensuring the rescued companies wouldn't fail. Unlike Moore's ventures, Sophie clarified, they wouldn't fake profits like Moore, but truly support the company's growth. Aman promised that even if the venture failed, workers would benefit from restored jobs and a soft landing. I agreed to discuss the plan with my associates, ensuring complete transparency with them. The Falcon Group consisted of 4 members: Marty Ball, my former Maple Grove manager; Lucy Armstrong, Kathy's ex-manager in finance; Dennis McCoy, Maple Grove's former tech manager; and me. We hadn't yet decided on my role. Beyond drafting business and marketing plans, Jeff and Alex were involved for legal counsel, as they would handle our legal affairs. If we officially became a business, we met at the restaurant, reviewing the proposal from Timberline. While having dinner, Marty and Lucy were impressed. While Dennis agreed, as he sampled a new dish, Lucy questioned the legality. Alex explained that as a privately owned company, the plan was legal, as long as no false claims were made to investors or lenders. Marty noted this clarified my role in Falcon, as heading business development and marketing. Though Jeff expressed concern, he pointed out that Aman wanted me as the public face of the venture, which could put me in Moore's crosshairs if we succeeded in tarnishing his reputation. Jeff's worries were valid, but we moved forward regardless. We drafted a counterproposal addressing these concerns. Our group, including Jeff and Alex, returned to meet with Aman and Sophie to finalize the details. Falcon Associates was established as a New Mexico anonymous LLC, where owner identities remained private. Jeff and Alex would represent us individually, while a separate attorney would serve as corporate counsel. Aman and Sophie owned 50% of the company. The 4 of us owned the other 50%, ensuring no single party had control. We agreed to make decisions as a unified block. Externally, we would appear as employees of Falcon: Marty as Director of Operations, Lucy as Director of Finance, Dennis as Director of Technology, and I as Managing Director. Whether I would also lead business development and marketing was undecided until we understood the resources available in the companies we aimed to rebuild. We set equal salaries of $250,000 per year, reasonable for a high-risk startup. We arranged standard executive benefits and a 247 security hotline for our families. Lucy and Dennis opted to stay out of the public eye due to their families. Each of us had a $10 million life insurance policy for worst-case scenarios. A week after signing the agreements, Aman informed us our salaries and benefits were in effect. Falcon had $100 million in working capital, with a $100 million reserve. Lucy was stunned when the financial statement arrived. It was a fraction of Aman's wealth, but more than any of us had ever expected to manage. 3 weeks later, the Illinois baking company closed, leaving 316 workers unemployed. Soon after, Falcon Associates LLC successfully bid to acquire Pathway Bakery Inc. for $28 million, with plans to reopen the facility by mid-December. Falcon Managing Director Roger Richardson stated their goal was to rebuild Pathway with a focus on people and quality. In the toxic culture under its previous owners, Falcon's acquisition was big news in Kelton, Illinois, a town hit hard by job losses since 2007. Former Pathway workers like Rena and Eden felt betrayed by more equity partners who had promised work before suddenly shutting down the plant. Now, just before Christmas, Falcon had acquired the plant and planned a public meeting to discuss its future. At the meeting, held at Kelton High School, the 600-seat auditorium was packed, with many attendees bringing their families. Former employees had each received an envelope, which they were instructed to open during the meeting. Inside were rehire letters, offering them their jobs back, along with a $1,500 prepaid Visa card to help with holiday expenses. Roger Richardson, along with Marty Ball, explained that while the plant wouldn't be operational by Christmas due to neglected equipment, employees would return to work in stages. Starting in 2 weeks, health insurance benefits had already been reinstated, all salaries and seniorities would be preserved. The crowd responded with cheers, applause, and tears of relief. The night ended with a buffet in the school gym, where Falcon Associates officially welcomed back the pathway workers and their families. I couldn't resist one more jab during interviews after the meeting, highlighting how the new pathway would succeed on quality and integrity. Everything the previous owners lacked. That evening, we shook hands with soon-to-be employees and their families, who just weeks earlier had lost hope. Seeing the change in their eyes was uplifting. As we headed to the hotel, Marty asked, "Think any of this is getting back to more?" "No clue," I replied, "but it feels pretty good." Headline: Falcon gifts displaced pathway workers $1,500. December 12, 2011, Kelton Record. Falcon Associates surprised former pathway workers by giving them $1,500 Visa gift cards. Falcon, based in Albuquerque, plans to reopen the Kelton Bakery next week. Initially hiring 70 workers, with hopes of rehiring all 300 by February, Mary Gladen, a former employee, was brought to tears by the unexpected generosity. "I didn't think I could give my kids much this Christmas. Now I can." Falcon's announcement made headlines nationwide. Videos from the meeting went viral. News stories popped up with titles like, "Pathway Rises from the Ashes" and "Miracle on Kelton Boulevard." One article even dubbed me the new George Bailey. While Daniel Moore was portrayed as Scrooge, unsurprisingly, media attention turned to who we were. The press unearthed my divorce from Kathy, her marriage to Daniel Moore, and the tragic deaths of Lana and Nancy. Although I declined to discuss my personal tragedy, we knew the story would eventually surface. It had all the elements of a soap opera. A wealthy millionaire fires a third of a town's workers, seduces a fired worker's wife, loses in court, and is ultimately linked to a tragic kidnapping attempt that ends in 2 deaths. Then the fired worker and his former colleagues start a new company and rescue another community, left jobless by the same millionaire. You couldn't script it better. Some stories were tough to watch, especially one that revisited the site where Lana and Nancy were killed. I had to turn it off when the reporter filmed the small family altar inside the restaurant, where my mom burns incense in front of photos of my grandparents, Dad, Lana, and Nancy. Jeff denied involvement in the ambush interview that confronted Moore outside his LA condo, where a reporter asked if he felt responsible for Lana and Nancy's deaths or Kathy's imprisonment. Moore's angry response, yelling something about failures and losers, was the hardest hit he'd taken yet. If Jeff did have a hand in it, I could live with that. The question of whether I would be just the face of the new pathway or take on a hands-on role in business development, marketing, and sales was answered with a clear yes. Pathway's former non-Moore managers were eager to return, but needed guidance to shift from restoring the old pathway to building a new one that could address modern markets. Since I had presented the $1,500 gift cards and made promises about rebuilding together, it naturally fell to me to rally the team and get them excited about the future. It took 4 months to get the pathway plant fully operational. Due to years of neglect under Moore's management, we faced safety violations, deferred maintenance, had to replace outdated equipment. We also upgraded the office tech, replacing all the computers, saving the hard drives for a secret data project. The rest was donated to local schools and nonprofits. We invested in our workforce as well. Employees who hadn't yet returned full-time received training to update their skills or prepare for new equipment, like robots, when asked if robots would lead to job cuts. Marty explained the goal was higher output with the same workforce, much like in the past, when output doubled without increasing headcount. Concerns about selling more pathway products after the decline in quality were addressed by focusing on rebuilding trust with former customers. Our message, Pathway is back, and better than ever, we expanded into new markets like organics, sugar-free, gluten-free, and grain-free products, which had been ignored under Moore's management, but were now growing in demand. The U.S. gluten-free market grew by over 60% in the next 4 years. Our gluten-free product line, launched in summer 2012, accounted for nearly a third of our revenue, cementing my reputation within Pathway's marketing team. Meanwhile, Maple Grove Mills, having let go of the marketing analysts we hired as consultants, completely missed the gluten-free boom. The first year of the new Pathway felt like my time working on the Falcon Cooperative, but on a much larger scale, instead of driving around Oregon and Washington. Building relationships, I was flying across the U.S., working on new and renewed partnerships for Pathway. Many renewals were with businesses the old Pathway had alienated. Due to poor quality, late shipments, and billing issues, even though we rehired Pathway's marketing and sales teams, many clients insisted on hearing directly from me. The new managing director, that the problems under Moore's ownership were gone. I never missed the chance to emphasize that we were a new company. Completely separate from Moore's Pathway, the PR efforts paid off, sales began to rise, we signed contracts to produce store-branded products. While this might seem like competition for our own products, the store brands didn't cost us anything for distribution or advertising, so profit margins were nearly the same. Our business plan was working. We held 2 meetings each quarter. The Pathway meeting included the entire company, where senior management met in the boardroom. Everyone else could log in online, though not required as a private company. We valued transparency. The Falcon meeting was private, just the 4 of us, Aman, Sophie, and our legal team. Aman, as the majority shareholder, could have led these meetings, but he and Sophie preferred to remain silent partners, so we rotated the responsibility. At our 3rd meeting, marking 1 year since Falcon Associates was formed, Lucy chaired the session after reviewing the usual updates, sales, plant performance, morale, and tech projects. Lucy revealed the financials. Pathway would end Q4 in the black, a year ahead of projections. This surprise came from an unplanned contract with Champion Markets. I had met their CEO at a trade show and pitched our private label services. When Champion expanded into the Southwest, their existing supplier became overwhelmed. So we took over their hard-baked snack line. It was a win-win, with no job losses. The deal looked promising for long-term success. The new Pathway's first holiday party was on December 21, 2012, our last workday of the year. The company provided the main dishes. Employees brought potluck items. Families and kids were invited, with someone dressed as Santa, not me. We screened It's a Wonderful Life in the conference room. I jokingly told the kids that Mr. Potter's first name was Daniel. Never miss an opportunity. After a gift exchange, under $20, gag gifts encouraged. We held a prize drawing and packed up leftovers for people to take home. Before everyone left, I announced, "We appreciate all your hard work this year. And when you receive your final checks, there will be a little extra." Applause followed. "It's not a Christmas bonus," I added, "it's profit sharing." Headline: Falcon shares profits with Pathway workers. December 24, 2012, Kelton record. A cheer erupted at Pathway's holiday party when Falcon Associates and its managing director, Roger Richardson, announced a profit-sharing bonus. Each employee received $500. Pathway employs 325 full-time workers. As a private company, we don't disclose earnings, Richardson said. But this year's profits are being shared equally among all employees. To show our appreciation for their hard work, we're building a new Pathway from the ruins of its predecessor. Never miss an opportunity. The next shot in our battle with Daniel Moore came unexpectedly. After Maple Grove Mills laid off 150 workers, businesses in Rose Valley felt the impact. Especially restaurants. I used some of my Falcon salary to help cover bills at Richardson's Garden. My mom and cousin Jean had health insurance through Falcon. In January, Jeff told me about a strange pattern at the restaurant. Fired Maple Grove employees were coming in more often, buying takeout for friends still working at the mill. Mom learned that Richardson's Garden had been removed from Maple Grove's list of approved caterers, with management implying repercussions for employees who continued to patronize. Rumor had it that this decision came after Daniel Moore threw a tantrum, shouting he would ruin those chinks. I shared this with Aman and Sophie. Aman called a teleconference. "I think we're getting to him," I said. Jeff agreed. Aman raised a concern about security. We decided to bring in Gray Bear Security, who specialized in blending into their surroundings. While providing protection, we hired a new waiter for Richardson's Garden, a retired Navy chief named Duke, pronounced Duque, who also drove for Mom, and moved into a spare room at her house to assist her, if needed. According to Mom, Duke was an excellent waiter and driver. Aman made some calls. A TV chef who featured small-town eateries came to Rose Valley. He visited local spots, including a breakfast house, brewery, and an artisan baker, who praised his stone-ground flour from a historic grist mill. The crew deliberately showed the chef driving past Maple Grove Mills without stopping, but they highlighted Richardson's Garden. Mom and Jean impressed the chef with special dishes from their secret Chinese menu, turning the restaurant into a minor gourmet destination. The extra business more than made up for the loss caused by Moore's attempted embargo. Word got back that Moore was furious that Richardson's Garden wasn't struggling, but had actually expanded its staff. Jeff and Alex hired a new paralegal, a former deputy sheriff, who lost her job when a county bond failed. She rented a room from Alex and his wife and carpooled with them. Meanwhile, Marty, Lucy, and Dennis opted against full-time security, but added someone to the Pathway security team. They also hired a nanny to shuttle their kids between school and home, helping them manage their busy work-from-home schedules. I hired an executive assistant, Rebecca Sullivan, a former Navy NCO, who had handled harassment from a superior officer by putting him in the hospital. Her story of taking him down impressed both Marty and me. Marty said, "She's perfect for you," comparing her attitude toward power abusers to mine when talking about Moore. Rebecca was highly competent as an assistant, and while I wasn't eager to test her bodyguard skills, her presence was reassuring. Rebecca and Dave Simpson, the new security guard at the executive office, moved into condos in the same complex where Marty and I lived. They integrated into our work and life seamlessly, with Rebecca and I carpooling to work, supposedly to save gas. Rebecca's arrival also resolved a staffing issue. Maureen, who had been supporting both Marty and me, was reallocated solely to Marty, who was now Pathway's general manager, after its previous manager, Harry, retired due to health issues. This left Rebecca to fully assist me with my cross-country duties as managing director of Falcon and Pathway. When I asked Rebecca how much she knew about our operations, she surprised me by revealing that Gray Bear Security, her employer, was a subsidiary of Mobile Maritime Protection Services, owned by the Sulu's shipping group. I should have expected that connection. The rest of Q1 2013 was steady, with monthly financial improvements. If we maintained this pace, we'd be a $10 million company by year-end, though we were mostly restoring Pathway to where it had been before Moore's mismanagement. Despite this progress, our only notable victory against Moore was his failed embargo on Richardson's Garden. We knew we needed to escalate things to the next level. An opportunity soon presented itself. Westover Foods Inc., Phil Barnes explained, at our Q1 Falcon meeting, makes Marvel bread and Happy snack cakes. Management has drained it financially, while promising to maintain the pension fund. This month, they reneged on the pension, violating the union contract. If the union refuses contract changes, the company will go under, but they'll keep the pension. If they accept, the company fails anyway, and they lose everything. Bankruptcy seems inevitable, Lucy said. Phil confirmed the union has voted down the new contract. 2 bids are in, $680 million for Happy, likely a done deal. Moore Equity Partners is the sole bidder, for Marvel at $30 million. They won't like that, Dennis noted. They don't, Phil agreed, which is why they approached us. They like what we're doing with Pathway. If we take over Marvel, they'll make compensation concessions to keep the pension fund intact. Bidding against Moore takes things up a notch, I said. Do we know what it would take to outbid him? Aman asked. Phil replied, Moore's bid was a take-it-or-leave-it offer. He's publicly claimed Marvel is a loser, and he's the only one who can fix it, so just bidding makes him look bad. I reasoned, and forces him to reconsider his offer. But could we save another company? Falcon Associates buys Marvel bread from Westover Foods, April 9, 2013, Food Business News. Falcon Associates has purchased Marvel Bread Company assets for $43.85 million. The acquisition includes 4 brands, 5 baking plants, and 11 depots. Expanding Pathway's distribution into the Pacific Northwest and Midwest. A week later, we flew to Portland for Marvel's first all-employee meeting. Gray Bear Security handled our travel. We were greeted by security at the airport. The meetings were more straightforward than Pathway's debut, as the unions had initiated our involvement. Marvel's workers wanted to meet us face-to-face, to hear our plans. Half of Marvel's 430 employees attended in person, while the rest joined by video conference. We discussed our success with Pathway, and assured them that Marvel products would be distributed alongside Pathway's. The turning point came when I mentioned growing up in Oregon, eating Marvel's Pioneer Trail honey butter bread. I vowed to make sure it didn't disappear, which seemed to reassure them. Afterward, we toured the Portland, Anchorage, Spokane, and Billings plants. Marty returned to Kelton, while the rest of us flew back to Portland, where we were picked up for the drive to Rose Valley. Lucy and Dennis worked remotely from Rose Valley, traveling to Illinois as needed. Meanwhile, my extended absence made me realize spending time in Rose Valley was difficult. Every visit pulled me back into painful memories of the past. I hoped that bringing work and Rebecca along would help me focus on the present. Rebecca, my executive assistant, insisted on staying in my apartment's second bedroom over the restaurant. Mom didn't seem to mind. She might have even thought having someone new around was a good thing. After Kathy. One night, I woke up to find Rebecca next to me. She explained that I had been shouting in my sleep, calling out for Lana and Kathy. She had stayed to comfort me. She thought I might have PTSD, and urged me to talk to someone. Later, as we reviewed notes from the Marvel meetings, Rebecca asked how I managed to inspire hope in others while struggling with my own pain. I had no answer. The rest of my visit to Rose Valley felt uncomfortable, haunted by bad memories at every turn. By the time I left, it was clear that Rose Valley was no longer my home. Rebecca was right. I needed help. When you're the managing director of a company in the spotlight and featured on Fortune, seeking help for potential PTSD isn't as simple as calling your insurance's provider list. Even though Falcon's success was a team effort, I was the public face. Any perception of instability could damage our business and our fight against Daniel Moore. Naturally, Amon had a connection. After some calls, I saw a doctor in Chicago. The diagnosis confirmed Rebecca's suspicion. I had PTSD, mainly from unresolved grief over my daughter and my ex-wife, with my worst episodes triggered by visits to Rose Valley. But my PTSD wasn't the only issue. I was also dealing with chronic stress from work responsibility for hundreds of jobs and the constant presence of bodyguards. On top of that, I showed signs of depression. I left the doctor with medication and a stress management plan, returning for bi-weekly therapy. We didn't have to save another company to meet Sophie's condition about avoiding damage to innocence. We just had to save jobs. Marvel turned out to be easier to rebuild than Pathway, as Westover's equity group had ignored it. While gutting Happy Brands, Marvel's regional bread brands were growing, especially in the Pacific Northwest. The depots we acquired helped expand Pathway's distribution, which was already riding high from the nationwide attention we got. After acquiring Pathway and giving out Christmas bonuses, the grassroots support boosted demand. We had to add shifts to meet orders for the holidays, making it the biggest Christmas in Pathway's history. The concessions Marvel's union made allowed us to equalize pay across all Falcon divisions. Once that was done, the union concessions were lifted. The unions representing Marvel, Westover, and Pathway employees eventually merged and negotiated as one, making it easier for us to handle contracts nationwide. Marvel Bread, combined with therapy, was good for me. By the end of December, my blood pressure had dropped 20%. I had learned to redirect my dreams to happier memories of my daughter. We all celebrated a Happy New Year in 2014. Well, maybe not everyone. Our first quarterly meeting of 2014 went smoothly. Sales were up, plants were performing well, employee morale was strong. Then we got the results from our secret data project. When Falcon acquired Pathway, we inherited not just its physical assets, but its intellectual property, including old data. Dennis's team had been working for years to recover deleted data from the servers and backups, some of which Moore's people had carelessly left behind when they wiped the hard drives. It turns out Moore had used Pathway's finances to commit fraud, shifting money around to make the company look profitable. We found emails, account numbers for offshore accounts, records linking him to schemes at other companies like Wilson Energy and Paulson Mining. Even more shocking, Dennis uncovered records showing that Moore orchestrated the financial distress of Rose Valley homeowners to force a buyout of Maple Grove Mills. His group had issued toxic mortgages to residents, pushing over 60% of the town's homeowners underwater, effectively ruining the lives of many. To seize control of the company, we handed all the data over to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the FTC, the SEC, the IRS, and other agencies. On April 12, 2014, charges were brought against Daniel Moore and Moore Equity Partners for fraud, tax evasion, and running a $3.2 billion scam. Moore had falsified revenues to secure loans, used fraudulently obtained money to pay off earlier lenders. The IRS uncovered offshore accounts and layers of companies used to hide the stolen money. The SEC sought the return of Moore's ill-gotten gains, while the DOJ froze his assets. A court hearing was scheduled for December. The IRS requested the asset freeze continue. The trials lasted over a year, during which Moore repeatedly claimed the evidence against him was faked. Dennis and Lucy testified about recovering Pathway's data. Moore's defense couldn't explain how fake data included real offshore bank accounts in places like the Bahamas and Luxembourg, holding over $1 billion that were never reported to the IRS. On June 24, 2015, Moore was sentenced to 60 years in prison for fraud and tax evasion. He had founded Moore Equity Partners in 1985, which owned 5 companies at its peak. Moore was convicted of falsifying revenues to secure loans, using fraudulently obtained money to pay off earlier debt, and hiding the proceeds to evade taxes. He was ordered to pay $3.2 billion in restitution. In addition to Moore, 7 partners and over a dozen employees were also indicted. They either pleaded guilty or were convicted. After testifying against Moore, however, we were disappointed when the DOJ classified Moore's predatory mortgage scheme in Rose Valley as a civil violation, with no criminal charges. The government seized $2.8 billion in assets, including offshore accounts, properties, and personal items. Falcon Associates received a whistleblower award from the IRS for 30% of the recovered amount. At an estimated $960 million, it would be the largest award in history. Once the assets were fully liquidated, our plan to take down Daniel Moore by reviving the businesses he ruined would result in nearly $600 million in profit. My ex-wife, who had worked in Maple Grove Mills' finance department under Moore, was not charged. She kept $500,000, a $1.6 million LA condo, and some cars. Until her release from prison, her assets were managed by a court-appointed guardian. Aman Suluz passed away peacefully on October 2, 2015, at age 91, though no evidence linked Moore to the death of Aman's son Andre. We hope that seeing Moore imprisoned brought Aman some closure. His memorial was a private affair, with only his daughter-in-law Sophie, his grandchildren, and close friends. We didn't attend, as he had wanted to keep his connection to Falcon Associates secret. To protect us all, media reports stated that Aman left millions to charity, with his shipping empire going to his daughter-in-law and grandchildren. Several weeks after his will was read, we met Sophie at the Timberline condominium. Aman bequeathed his share in Falcon Associates to me, Sophie said, ensuring we remained business partners. She handed us a financial statement, revealing that Falcon's value had reached $1 billion, making each of our shares worth over $200 million. Aman's final investment, Sophie confirmed. He told me that Falcon was the project he was most proud of, even though no one outside this room would ever know he funded it. Sophie also gave us a letter from Aman. In it, he expressed gratitude for our friendship and for helping him find redemption. He ended the letter with a simple request. Save as many of them as you can. Sophie smiled as I finished reading. So, she asked, who are we saving next? A few months later, Falcon Associates finalized the purchase of Moore Equity Partners assets on December 4, 2015, acquiring Wilson Energy, Paulson Mining, and Maple Grove Mills. For about $258 million, Moore's operations at Wilson and Paulson were built on environmental destruction and displacing indigenous communities, I said, as Falcon's managing director. We will end these practices immediately and work to reverse the damage. Maple Grove Mills will also be restored to its former reputation for quality. Falcon Associates will uphold the highest standards of business integrity. We discovered that Wilson and Paulson were mostly holding companies used by Moore to defraud investors. Thankfully, their promises of mass rainforest destruction were just another fraud when we canceled the San Lawrence rainforest deal and cut ties with the thugs hired to intimidate indigenous tribes. We found only about 200 actual employees between both companies. While we weren't eager to save jobs designed for destruction, we offered them a chance to work on Falcon Environmental Group's new South American restoration project. This project was a huge risk, as no one had successfully replanted such a large section of deforested rainforest. However, it attracted top environmental scientists. And if we succeeded, it could create numerous jobs in environmental restoration. That brings us to today. I'm sitting in a warehouse at Maple Grove Mills. The only place large enough to hold all current and former employees and their families. We've set up a stage. Around 70% of Rose Valley's population is here, waiting to hear from us. We'll start with our Falcon message: success through quality and integrity. We'll remind them that Maple Grove was once a place of respect, fairness, and high standards, and that we can make it that way again. Rebuilding Maple Grove won't be like saving Pathway, Marvel, or even Wilson and Paulson. Those companies' workers were united. But here, a third of Maple Grove's staff were pushed out 4 years ago, not just for a short time. We hired many of them as Falcon consultants, helped others find jobs at Marvel. And while we'll offer them positions at Maple Grove again, not everyone may want to return. Those who do might still feel resentment toward their neighbors, coworkers, even family, who cashed in and sold out the heart of our town. I get it, I'm one of them. Just as I faced my own demons, we all need to confront what happened here. If we don't, it'll eat away at us. I'm going to speak openly about what we let happen, the cost, and how we must work together to rebuild our community. Yes, I set our hometown as Falcon's public face. I've become a symbol of the pain this town has endured. To make any difference, I have to come back and help make Rose Valley home again, because if we can't do that, the person who tore it apart still wins. If you're wondering if my story has a happy ending, you're not alone. Sure, I went from being jobless to becoming a partner in a billion-dollar business. My ex-wife is serving her sentence. The villain is a broke convict, likely spending life in prison. Over 1,000 workers across several states see me as their savior. But I'd trade all of it to hold my daughter again. There's a part of me that success and justice can't heal. As for love, it's going to take a long time, if ever, before I go down that road again. Still, life goes on. I have plenty to keep me occupied, so maybe there isn't a clear ending. I can't say I'm happy, but I have a purpose, and for now, that's enough. Maybe there's hope after all.